just, give the child to somebody that says they are who they are. We want to make sure that the child is going to the proper person that's responsible for that child. So, yes, it is taking a little time to do this, but it's for the safety of your child that it's taking a little extra time. Those that are being reunited are not affected by this in any way, shape, or form, and the school district will release a statement here shortly on exactly what's going to transpire over the next 2 days, 3 days. The school will be in lockdown, shut down. The high school will be shut down for at least 2 or 3 more days because of the investigation. This is an ongoing police investigation. This is not going to be taken lightly. We have to make sure that we do everything necessary to assure for a swift and orderly type resolution to the situation that occurred. We will, at this time, I'll bring Superintendent Parental up, and he'll make a statement for the school district. Superintendent.
As a school community, our focus is on our students and staff, as well as their families. Our thoughts and prayers are with the injured and all of those affected by this awful tragedy. As a school community and as your superintendent, I pray and we pray every day that this doesn't happen in any school. Today, our school community experienced a terrible tragedy. The actions and response of our staff, students, and local law enforcement officers saved many lives. Our emergency responders provided critical support and medical assistance. We will continue to work in cooperation with the local law enforcement in the coming days and weeks ahead. Our high school, as Mr. Stevens noted, will be closed over the next several days. However, our elementary schools and our middle school will remain open tomorrow, as we know that our school family and system can provide strength and support to our students. Counseling services will be available for the entire school community. If parents elect to keep their students home, we understand, and we will provide any support for those families as well. Further information in regard to these services will be shared out soon. We appreciate the thoughts, prayers, and support from our local community as well as from across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Just following up, we do have a very large law enforcement presence. We have assistance from not only local law enforcement here in the Murraysville, Penn Township, and surrounding communities. State police are here to assist us with the investigation. The FBI has brought in some individuals to help us with the investigation and background and trying to see if there was anything that might have led to this particular situation. At this point, I'll open it up to some questions.
Could the superintendent tell us a little bit about the
That information will come out at a future time. Right? The actual principal that tackled the individual is still being questioned by law enforcement, and that information will come out later on. I can't release that at this point. No.
Can the superintendent tell us when the last time there was a drill, any kind of safety exercise here at the school?
It was that's the one thing that we're very fortunate here. We work very closely. The Department of Public Safety works with the school district. I know we were just up here probably 3 months ago for a tabletop exercise, and we had a full-scale exercise here about a year ago. So, Franklin Regional School District has been proactive when it comes to any type of school incidents that occur. And these plans are reviewed, and the plan will be reviewed after this situation to see if anything needs to be improved upon. We have to look at it from the standpoint that what we saw happen here today was a very good evidence that the plan does work, and the students are, safe as safe can be. We haven't lost a life, and I think that's what we have to keep in mind. Remember, we have to keep the people that are affected by this, the 19 students and the 1 faculty member that was involved in the actual stabbings. We want to make sure that our thoughts go out to those people. It's their world that we have to worry about right now. The school will resume, and we will be back as strong as we were in the past, if not stronger in the future. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you.
Are there metal detectors in place at the school?
No other questions.
Right now at noon, we're continuing our breaking live news coverage. We have seen mass violence at other high schools nationwide. Today, it hit this area. A student at Franklin Regional High School went on the attack with a knife, stabbing 20 people.
A security guard and assistant principal at the school managed to wrestle 2 knives away from that student and take him into custody. That student is said to be a 16-year-old sophomore.
Ambulances from all over converged on the high school to assist the stabbing victims. 19 students and 1 security guard were wounded. Some of the injuries are critical. They are severe, with stab wounds to their abdomens and damage to internal organs. Other people were slashed and suffered superficial cuts.
And even more suffered emotional wounds, as you can imagine. Students who saw the situation are traumatized, while panicked parents race to the school to find out about their children.
Live from the KDKA Broadcast Center in downtown Pittsburgh. This is KDKA TV News at noon.
What a morning it has already been. Good afternoon. I'm Stacy Smith.
And I'm Kimberly Gill. Our live team coverage continues on the stabbings at Franklin Regional High School. We have reporters spread throughout the area covering all the angles, from the school and police to the hospital, doctors, and victims.
We begin now with Trina Orlando at the Franklin Regional High School with the latest on the investigation there. Trina?
Stacy, good afternoon. Franklin Regional High School was prepared extensively for a situation like this, but they never expected to have to put that training to use. Today, we are learning that the unthinkable happened here at Franklin Regional High School, and at a press conference right now at noon, we have received good news that all of the victims are expected to survive.
I don't know.
A nightmare at Franklin Regional High School. Anguished parents sprinting to check on their injured children. Students were still arriving when the violence began.
The incident occurred at 7:13 this morning when a resource officer from Murraysville Police and Franklin Regional School District determined that there was an incident going on in the hallways on the first floor of the school.
A 16-year-old sophomore wielding 2 knives stabbed 20 people in a matter of minutes. 19 fellow students were hurt, 4 critically. A security guard was also stabbed.
And I look through the nurse's window and I see some kid holding his stomach and like running. So I walk out into the parking lot and there was this kid laying down and he was holding his side and there was a teacher on top of him screaming, "Help."
Among the chaos, we are beginning to hear acts of heroism. A student who pulled the fire alarm to warn classmates, and a school principal who approached the suspect and disarmed him.
I was terrified when I found out, walking through and I almost cried, but I held them back.
Murraysville police are investigating the motive for the rampage and say that will take time.
We have a crime scene that's pretty vast, so it's going to take us time to get through this, to talk to the witnesses and the victims to determine exactly what happened.
And one thing police will be looking into, an alleged threatening phone call made to one of the victims last night. Reporting live in Westmoreland County, Trina Orlando, KDKA TV News.
Okay, Trina, thank you. And as we said, 19 students and 1 staff member were injured. They were taken to hospitals all over the area, which was a daunting task, as you can imagine, for some of the doctors and nurses in emergency rooms. Here is a look at how the victims are spread out throughout the hospitals. There are 8 patients that are at Forbes Regional. 5 are at UPMC East and Monroeville. And as I understand, that hospital just became a level 2 trauma center within the last 6 months. So that certainly is good. It's the closest there to Murraysville, to the high school. 4 are at Children's Hospital and 1 each at Allegheny General, Mercy, and Presbyterian Hospital. Heather Abraham is live at Forbes Regional Hospital, where some of the most critical patients were taken. She joins us live with more on that. Heather?
And we were briefed by medical staff about an hour ago. We do know that of the patients brought here, 8 total, all of them are male, including 7 students and 1 adult. All of the students range in age between 15 to 17 years old, all had stab wounds, and they were described as deep, penetrating wounds to the right abdomen and flank. 3 of the students were still in the operating room at our last briefing, but medical staff were hoping that they would stabilize soon and then would be moved to an intensive care unit here at Forbes Hospital. As for the other students, 2 are in critical but have stabilized, we're told. Another 1 or 2 may still need surgery, but they are still still currently under evaluation. In speaking with Dr. Chris Kaufman, he said it was vital to their survival that these victims got treatment right away, and said that the trauma team here at Forbes was ready as soon as they got the call.
None of these are superficial wounds.
Okay.
These are all significant stab wounds, every one. Patients who are bleeding internally from stab wounds such as this won't tolerate an extra 15 minutes. That's why the 2 patients that came in with low blood pressure and stab wounds went directly to the operating room. They spent less than 5 minutes in the emergency department and were taken expeditiously up to the operating room where they belong.
In our last briefing, again, about an hour ago with medical staff here at Forbes, we also learned more about a young female student who helped one of her male classmates who was injured, who was stabbed. According to medical staff here, she actually applied pressure and was able to help him as he was making his way here to the hospital. That male student was one of the 3 that had to undergo surgery this morning. Talking with doctors, they said that she maintained great composure and definitely played a role in saving his life. Now, as for the adult patient that was brought here, we don't know much about him. However, we were able to learn that his condition here was not as a result of a stab wound, that it was some sort of medical condition that brought him here to Forbes.
All right, Heather, we thank you. We'll be checking back with you a little bit later. As Trina Orlando indicated, there was probably one student who pulled a fire alarm, which then alerted the other students to get them out of the building. Paul Martino joins us live now from Children's Hospital with more on this part of the story, because the young man who pulled the fire alarm, Paul, he is now at Children's. Is that right?
Yeah, and we'll get to him in a minute, but let me tell you what's going on here at Children's. This is really the reality of this whole thing. We've got kids here in the hospital from this crazy stabbing. We've been reporting all morning. There are 4 here. We're now told 5 victims here at Children's. A 14-year-old male in critical condition, a 17-year-old male, serious, 16-year-old male, serious condition, another 17-year-old boy in fair condition, and there's a 17-year-old female here, all in fair condition. We spoke earlier this morning with a minister, heads a youth ministry that some of the kids from Franklin Regional are involved with. He was actually texting with these kids as the whole thing unfolded this morning. Anthony Lecoq shared with us how those conversations went.
One text said, "I saw the kids bloody on the ground, at least 2. One student, I think 3 kids were stabbed. Another student, more than 3. One student just saying, I'm scared. One student saying, I prayed with my friends at the school in the woods. They were walking into the school when someone said run, you know, there's something going on. And they said, I prayed with my friends at school while in the woods. This is like a real life situation that's not supposed to happen in our bubble."
So cell phones and social media became vital communication during this crisis. And one of the things that's on social media right now, and we preface this by saying we haven't gotten official confirmation, but it's all over social media, that a young man here at Children's Hospital, Nate Simio, was kind of a hero in all of this, leaping past the knife-wielding suspect and pulling the fire alarm so that the student body would get out of the high school, out of harm's way. Nate is posting a selfie right now on social media. He has an apparent arm injury and is supposedly here at Children's Hospital. Social media playing a huge role here this morning and on into this afternoon. Reporting live from Children's Hospital, Paul Martino, KDKA TV News.
Okay, Paul. Well, the suspect is said to be a 16-year-old sophomore from Franklin Regional, but so far police say they do not have a motive as to why this student may have gone on the attack, but they're looking into reports of a threatening phone call between the suspect and another student that happened the night before. Sarah Arbogast is live from the Murraysville Police Station with the latest from there. Sarah?
Kimberly, certainly a lot of unanswered questions about the suspect involved in these stabbings. Police have yet to release his name, but we do know that he is a 16-year-old sophomore student at Franklin Regional. Murraysville police took him into custody right there at the school just shortly after the stabbings. He was brought here to the Murraysville police station for questioning. Then just before 10:30, he left the police station in the back of a police cruiser. He had his head down the entire time. We didn't have a chance to talk to him at all because he was placed in that police car while it was parked inside basically a garage here at the station. Now, we know the suspect had some injuries to his hands that needed treatment, but we believe he was taken straight from the police station to a local hospital. And right now, police are at the suspect's home here in Murraysville. They are looking for any clues, any evidence that may lead to some answers. At this point, police have not commented on a motive at all. Still, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of people hoping to learn more about this suspect and especially what may have led him to such violence. In Murraysville, Sarah Arbogast, KDKA TV News.
Sarah, we thank you. Now, as you can imagine, we just heard from Paul Martino's report how frightened the students were at Franklin Regional this morning. Also very frightened would be the parents of those students. They made their way quickly to the high school to check on their children. Ross Gadati joins us live now from the high school with more on this part of the story. Ross?
From the very first moments of all of this, one thing that went into effect immediately was Franklin Regional's emergency response plan. And what that entailed essentially was trying to get all the kids out of the high school, find out who was where, and then get them accounted for and return them to their parents. That started with moving all the students down to the middle school, where they did a head count, found out where everybody was. And then they were escorted, we understand, individually and sometimes in small groups back to the high school to be reunited with parents who obviously were terrified over the news they had heard on social media, on the radio, as well as television. Cue me in.
He called me at work, and he said, "Mom, I'm okay." He said there was a stabbing at the school, and it's like your knees buckle, and you just thank God that you're hearing his voice. And people just continuously call him, asking if he was okay, and it was on the national news. And then finally, I mean, I got no word from the school, but I guess that I heard they may have called my house phone. And then I got a text saying that I had to come to the school to pick him up. That's the only way that he would be released. So I left work and got a really good hug a couple minutes ago.
She was dropped off. My son was waiting in the car with his dad in the parking lot, and I got a call that something was going on at the high school. There were ambulances and police cars, and we found out there was a stabbing. We get home. My son, actually, you were there, I guess, when it started to happen.
Terror replaced by relief. Now these parents have to deal with what their children had to witness, and as you can understand, it was absolutely horrific. Having said that, we understand there are still several students being sequestered awaiting pickup by their parents as well. Reporting live, Ross Gadati, KDKA TV News.
All right, Ross, thank you. Now, several local churches are holding services, doing what they can to help the people affected by today's events. Calvary Lutheran Church and School is located just across the street from Franklin Regional School District campus. Its sanctuary will be open all day, and a prayer service is scheduled for tonight at 6:45.
Also, Newlandsburg Presbyterian Church, it's also open right now to anybody that needs counseling, and it will hold a prayer service tonight at 7 o'clock.
There will also be a prayer service at Christ's Lutheran Church. That begins at 7 also, and all of these churches are located in Murraysville, so the community is reaching out to do what it can to help those affected by this incident at Franklin Regional High School that took place this morning. And speaking about the community reacting, Kimberly, I thought it was very interesting this morning when Dr. Rubino at Forbes was talking about the fact that how they had to, the emergency crews, the trauma staff had to kick into a gear. They put their mindset on. They're treating the patients there. But when you step back from it, a lot of these people who are their regular patients.
Oh, absolutely. It's a close-knit community. Some of the doctors there could have, and there was an OBGYN that spoke and said, you know, I could have delivered some of these children, or I know their parents, they're my patients. And, you know, it's just really, you never think it's going to happen to you.
You don't, but having said that, we've also heard this morning, especially from Forbes Regional, they were crediting the emergency crews who first made their way to the school. And the fact is because they firmly believe that some of the actions taken by these EMTs who were there in the field may have also saved the life or two of some of the students who were taken to Forbes Regional, who at last check apparently are still in surgery, suffering some very severe knife wounds to their internal organs.
A lot of acts of heroism, as you mentioned. One student credited with maybe saving the life of another, where she held pressure on the stab wound until medical, they could get there to help that one student. So certainly a lot of folks helping out, and as I said, you just never think that it's going to happen.
We've been talking about Forbes Regional. That is where Heather Abraham has been located this morning. And Heather, we've been talking about the actions taken by some of the EMTs and the news conferences that have been held, and just how close-knit this community is right there.
I have to tell you, all through the morning since we arrived here around 8 o'clock, and this was about 45 minutes after the initial call came in, there's really been a sense of calm. It really sounds like the doctors here, the medical staff here was ready to go. They knew what they had to do. They knew they had to act fast, and they had to work together, communicate, and really work to save these kids' lives. And we do know that 7 students here were being treated by medical staff, 3 of them undergoing surgery. When we were last briefed about an hour and a half ago, we were told that they were hoping they would stabilize in surgery soon and then would be moved to an intensive care unit. 2 others were in critical condition but had stabilized, so that's some good news. And this was really described to us by medical staff here as significant stab wounds to all of these 7 students that arrived here at Forbes Hospital. They were described as deep puncture wounds, all to the right abdomen or flank. Doctors pointing out how bizarre it was that all of the students had injuries in that same location on their bodies. Also speaking with Dr. Mark Rubino, he is the chief medical officer here. He said that he had to put his emotions aside. He is part of this community. As you were mentioning, Stacy and Kimberly, that he delivered some of these children perhaps, and some of the mothers of these children are his patients. So there's a deep tie here to this community. Dr. Rubino also commenting on the heroic efforts of this young woman, this student, who rushed into action when one of her classmates had been stabbed.
Heather,
to really help that friend who was having probably pretty significant bleeding at that point, and the pressure that she applied probably played a significant role in his ability to survive this.
And we do know that that student that was taken here and was helped by that female classmate was one of the 3 that had to undergo surgery here this morning, still in surgery, again, as we were last briefed about an hour and a half ago. We also know that an adult victim was brought here. Not much was released into his age or his specific injuries or his role in all of this, but we were told that he suffered some sort of medical condition and he was being treated for that, apparently alert and able to talk with medical staff as well here earlier this morning. Stacy, Kimberly?
All right, Heather, also, if I'm not mistaken, as Kimberly just mentioned as well, Forbes Regional just recently became a status 2 as far as trauma units go.
That's right. It was actually in October of 2013 that they received that accreditation, and they said that they were the newest one to receive that here in Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania. They have also had 2 pretty severe trauma incidents within the last couple of months, but they said that they were prepared. Even though being new to this, they were very prepared for any kind of major traumas, multiple traumas. And I think that today, in talking with the medical staff, they definitely proved themselves as far as taking care of these students, getting them where they need to be, evaluating who needed to be seen first, and go into the emergency room. In fact, talking with Dr. Kaufman, who is the head of the trauma department here at Forbes, he said that he looked up at one point and he had 20 surgeons looking at him, ready to go if they were needed.
They also brought in some liver specialists, if I'm not mistaken, that probably came from AGH.
That's right. They were brought in, and as we understand it, when the call came in and they started to realize where the stab wounds were on the bodies of these children, they contacted a liver specialist, just given the fact that internal organs may have been damaged or punctured because of these because of the stabbing. So they were brought in. These doctors were brought in to also provide any help if needed.
All right, Heather, thank you. Keep working in the story for us and give us any updates as they do become available. Heather Abraham reporting live from Forge Regional, where 7 of the students were taken, 1 adult, several of them still in critical condition there.
We're also just getting word that the suspect was just returned to the police station in Murraysville. You know, earlier we had reported that he was taken to a local hospital with some superficial wounds. We've been told right now that he is back at the Murraysville Police Department, where I believe Sarah Arbogast is.
Yep.
We're going to go to her right now live for the latest on that. Sarah?
That's right. The suspect just arrived back here to the police station. He was taken in a police cruiser right back into that garage where he left just around 10:30. He was wearing a hospital gown when he came back, so we assume that those hand injuries that he had, he was taken to a hospital and treated for that. And just to kind of recap what's been happening here at the police station, we know that Murraysville police took him into custody right at the school. They brought him here for questioning at around 10:30. He left the police station, was taken to be treated for those hand wounds, and then just arrived back here to the police station. Police here are not releasing much information. We know that he's a 16-year-old sophomore at Franklin Regional, and we also know that police are also over at the suspect's home. They're looking for evidence, looking for clues, anything that may answer exactly why this happened this morning. So we will keep you posted. But again, that suspect is back here at the Murraysville police station.
Sarah, we thank you.
All right, we're going to go right now to get you caught up on your forecast. Here's meteorologist Dennis Bowman. Dennis.
All right, brilliant sunshine has been with us today. Temperatures really been taking off, getting up into the 50s here at lunchtime. You take a look at our map here. It's going to be a breezy and warmer day for your Thursday. Those winds are going to be out of the southwest at 12 to 25 miles per hour. So you factor in a lot of sunshine with that. And as warm as it is today, or as pleasantly mild, the temperatures are going to be so much warmer tomorrow. Today, we're going to max 59 degrees, drop it off to 36 under clear skies. Look at tomorrow, a mix of clouds and sun. We're up to 68 degrees, down to 47 tomorrow night. It'll be 60 on Friday. Now, some showers will sneak in late tomorrow night and be in place for a good deal of the time here on Friday, especially from Pittsburgh south. And then we'll be at 65 as we brighten things up for the weekend. That'll be Saturday's situation, 72. Partly sunny on Sunday, a beautiful weekend on the horizon. And then it'll be 62 on Monday. Next disturbance flies in here. It does look like we'll be dealing with some showers on that day. That's your forecast. Stacy, Kim, back to you.
Okay, Dennis, thank you. We want to just let you know that they've already announced that no classes will be held at the school tomorrow or for the next several days because, as you can imagine, this is an active crime scene and they're still trying to figure out a lot about this.
Yeah, as they noted, it's a large crime scene.
Sure.
It's going to take a while to process everything that's going on there. And to process for you what has happened so far today at Franklin Regional High School, one student, a suspect, 16-year-old, is now accused of going through the school, at least a part of the school, and stabbing other students and at least one adult. In all, 19 students, one adult, suffered stab wounds. Some of those students are critically wounded.
That's right. The police say this 16-year-old male student, a suspect, is in custody. He had been taken to the hospital with some superficial wounds. He has now been brought back to the Murraysville police station. He is in custody, and they are going through the suspect's house, trying to figure out, find any clues as to why this might have happened.
Exactly. Now, we will be here throughout the afternoon, Kimberly and I, and keeping you up to date as any new developments happen. And of course, we'll have a full wrap-up coming up today in our 4 o'clock newscast, 5 and at 6 o'clock as well. So that is the news for now.
Thank you for joining us. We now join the young and the restless.